Hi everybody. So you might be asking yourself right now, what in the heck is Mike doing sitting on the floor of his RV? Well, I'll tell you why. Because of this. So this is a propane detector, and its purpose is to, it might be kind of obvious, but to detect propane. And why is that important? Well, propane is something we use in the camper. We've got 2 bottles of it. There's various pipes and tubes and things running around the camper. And if it leaks, if there's a leak in a fitting, a leak in the tubing, something wrong with the stove, that propane can get out. Of course, propane is combustible. That's why we use it here. Use it for heat and cooking and so on and so forth. And we don't want a fire hazard or explosion hazard, and that could happen in the middle of the night. So nearly all RVs, I think probably any more modern RV is going to have one of these. And this particular unit is nothing more than an alarm. So if it detects propane in the air over a certain threshold, it'll start beeping. This little LED will flash. It's a lot like a smoke detector in a house. It will wake you up if need be. If you're outside, you'll probably hear it, and you'll know you probably need to take a look at something and see what's going on. So in this case, why am I on the floor? Well, propane is heavier than air. So these detectors are mounted down here by the floor, and I'll show you that spot here in a second. We bought this RV in Mississippi. We live in Colorado, so we had to go down, pick it up, and drive it home. It's used. It's about 5 years old, but well cared for. And on the way home one day, I hear a beeping, and we come back to the back of the camper here, and I take a look, and sure enough, the light right here is blinking, but it was just a short beep, like once every minute or so. So it wasn't like it was going off like there was a problem. Hit the test mute button, that shut it down. Next day, guess what? Same thing happened. So, and I'll point out, I went and checked the fittings. There's no odor whatsoever of propane in the camper. And propane, by the way, has an odorant added to it, mercaptan, which is there so that you can easily smell it and detect a leak. Anyway, that continued on for a while. And we got back here to Colorado. We put the camper in storage for a while, and I came here one day, and sure enough, it was beeping. But this time it was beeping with a 2 green signals on here, and when I would press it, it would not mute. So obviously something's not right there. Sure enough, if you take a look here, there's some writing. That right there. There is some writing there. On the unit itself, it says end of life signal. Pressing mute will silence for 3 days. So I said it was a day later. Maybe it was more like 3 days. And then replace the unit. And it says the EOL will not mute after 30 days. So that's exactly what we saw. Was able to go online. You can find the model number right here on the front. It's also around here on the back. And what's also interesting on the back here is the date. So this has a manufacturer's date of August 10th of 2015. And by the way, what's the life of these things? 5 years. And they basically say 5 years after you purchase it. So it gives you a little bit of leeway. Maybe it was made in August, but the camper, I think in this case, was sold probably in the March 2016 time frame by the time it got out of the manufacturer. And so we're sitting here about 5 years away, and sure enough, this is at the end of its life. So what that means is that the sensor inside is no longer going to function to be able to detect propane properly. The only way to fix that is to replace it. Here's what I've got today. You'll notice it looks virtually identical, and it is identical. Maybe there's like a slight difference in the model number. Nope, take that back. There is no difference in the model number. So here's 6 years ago now. You can still get these things exactly the same, so you can replace it in kind, and it's really very easy. And when I say very easy, 2 wires, black, red. So sometimes in RVs, black is positive, but if you see a red, that's not the case. Red is positive here, black is going to be negative. Okay, so you can see down here, it's really pretty simple. This shiny mirror thing is my refrigerator. It's a propane refrigerator. And down here at the bottom is a little opening cut in the wall and 2 wires sticking out of it. And you have to remember what I just mentioned, that in RVs, white is negative usually and black is positive. But in this case, with our device here, we've got a red and a black. So in this case, red is positive and black is negative. Confusing. Why RVs couldn't go with red and black, I don't know. It is somewhat akin to what's in a house, where black is the power side and the white is a neutral. So maybe there are carryovers from that. So first thing to remember here is that these don't go through a switch. So you can't just turn off a switch and unpower these. So these are actually hot right now, or in this case, the black and red is positive, so that has 12 volts on it. This is a ground. You don't want to short this to ground. You can go pull the fuse for this circuit, and I might recommend that if you have any questions about it. There's nothing conductive around here that this could hit against and cause a short. If it did, it would blow the fuse, hopefully. That's what they're for. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to power this down, and I'm going to just power it live. And to do that, then I'll just cut and strip the black wire, the positive, connect it to the red, get that all crimped up and sealed, and then that'll be isolated. I don't have to worry about bumping something before I cut open and expose the ground, so I don't have to worry about shorting these things together, even though I'm leaving the power on. This really isn't a hard project. You know, tools wise, it doesn't take a whole lot. Mine are put in with Phillips screws. That's what's holding it to the wall. So a Phillips screwdriver in my case. You might have something slightly different. A lot of RV manufacturers will use the square drive, which are just a little bit odd. Looks like it came with Phillips screws. They're a little different than what's in there. I'll just stick to what was in there since I know those threads are going to be the same and the length is good. But if you had something like a drywall, you wouldn't expect that in an RV, but if you had something soft in there, you might need the expansion. Maybe it's just panel with no backing behind it. This has wood backing. So you put this in there as an expansion anchor, and you might want to replace those if the anchor's twisted out when you were taking this out, for instance. But in this case, it's pretty straightforward. While we're here, let's take a look at the date. So this says January 7th, 2021, so theoretically we should have till about 2026 before we have to worry about this again. So I've got a combo of cutters, strippers here. You might have something different. You've got these side cutters. It is a good idea though to have a proper stripper, wire stripper, so you don't nick the conductors. So I'll start by cutting this. And I'm going to strip the two ends. So these are butt splices, which are a crimp style connector. So basically you're going to shove a stripped end of the wire inside each end of that connector and then crimp it down. In this case, I think this the wire in the RV is slightly bigger in diameter. And looking at this, they used a blue. They are color coded by size. You can see here there's yellow, blue, and pink or red in here. They used a blue. That's probably a good size to pick. You can see here the crimped part in the middle, which is the metal part. That's what we want to crimp. And we want our bare wire to go about halfway into that middle barrel, and then the insulation to go into this end. So we'll crimp it about here. And if you're not sure what the wire gauge is, start it on the big size. And if for some reason that doesn't cut into the insulation enough, just move to the next smaller size. It's kind of an easy way to do it. So make sure there's no loose strands, so that when you push it in, all of the strands will go into that metal barrel that's in the middle there. Yeah, this is where I should have had my crimper handy ahead of time. So this is a basic crimper, which also has a wire stripper on it. But I find them awkward to use because of where they're located and not being on the outer edge. And you can see there's some little dots there. There's a blue dot, so that's the part you would use to crimp a blue connector. So crimp it so it goes all the way closed, and if you've got the good crimpers, it should be a nice solid connection. So next, we'll go with the red one. The end of that wire is a little messed up, so I'm going to cut it off and strip a little bit more. Oops. So there was a little bit too big of a hole. This wire is a tad smaller, but you have to use the butt connector for whatever your largest wire size is, and still use the blue crimp. Get it in the right spot. Give it a quick test. Yeah, see that one's a little bit loose. I can feel it moving, so I'm going to go to the red because that is a smaller wire size. It needs to crimp a little tighter. Alright, so that's in there. It's good and solid. We're going to repeat that process now with the white. We have a green here. I think we're in good shape. We can test it. Get kind of loud. It definitely works. Now you'll notice a difference with these crimp connectors. This one I took out was kind of a standard budget crimp connector. Works fine. Suitable for inside use, but it's not sealed against moisture or weather. These I bought, and I just kind of like to use these in general, even though it's inside. These are heat shrinkable, and they'll shrink and seal around the wires. So let's do that next. Turn this unit on. And the last step here is to put this new propane detector in place. So when I took it out, there's quite a bit of wire on here, which was nice. It just made the rewiring a little easier. I wouldn't cut that any shorter. It's not a high current draw. Length is not critical. I look back in here, there's a couple other wires running back in here, but nothing for it to cause a problem if those wires are rattling around there a little bit. And this goes back in quite easily. The wires come out the bottom, so I'm going to kind of tip it like this, with the bottom in first. Snug fit. And that's it. I think we're done. Looks good. It's nice and new and shiny. The light is now a steady green. Let's go ahead and press this. All right, so that wasn't too bad of a project. Hopefully you'll have some ideas if you hear your propane detector occasionally beeping and you got some funny lights blinking on the front of it. Take a look at the front, read the directions. It will be telling you something. And if it's an end-of-life issue like ours was, it's not a big deal to buy one and replace it. Just do a good job on the electrical connections. Anyway, hope this is helpful to you. Look forward to putting a few more things out here on YouTube that will hopefully be of use as we continue to upgrade, repair, and travel in our Northern Lite truck camper. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you watching. Bye-bye.